Hogville YouTube Live. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. It's Tuesday, so happy Tuesday. And everybody will be a lot happier if Arkansas can win again in the elimination round tonight. It's interesting because you've got the Diamond Hogs still waiting to find out who their opponent is. You had a weather delay yesterday, LSU about midway through the ball game, leading UCLA 4-3. Excuse me. So the completion of that game is expected to sometime this morning. I think in about 10 or 15 minutes, that game will resume. Of course, the loser drops down into the elimination round to face Arkansas. Obviously, the winner moves on to that part of the bracket's finals, or you could say the semifinals, the Final Four, where the winner of today's completed game between LSU and UCLA will be effectively in the driver's seat, needing to win only one more game, and again, whoever emerges from the elimination round to win two. So we'll see if that's LSU or UCLA. We know Gage Wood. I want to shout out to Gage Wood for that just incredible game. I watched every pitch. And in the eighth inning, he plunked a guy. Well, I say plunked. The ball hit a batter's foot. It's the only Murray State player to reach base and didn't advance beyond first base because Gage Wood otherwise was just automatic. 19 strikeouts, set an Arkansas Razorbacks record, and it established the College World Series record for a 9-inning game in terms of strikeouts. Now, he almost pitched the first perfect game in the College World Series history. As it stands, a no-hitter, and that's only the third in the history of the College World Series, and the first since 1960. So 65 years came and went since the last time a no-hitter was thrown. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's one of those things in baseball that, when you start talking perfect games and no-hitters and all the strikeouts, those kind of things, it put Arkansas on another level. Now you move on to the next day and you're still playing for your life. And so we'll see what happens there, but just wanted to acknowledge that. Excuse me, I continue to come on here with a hoarse voice, not realizing I have one. My apologies for that. What we're really here, we're just going to hit a few things today. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I did spend some time yesterday at June is camp month. When you start talking about spring and summer basketball, it's not the shoe circuit stuff, which really runs May and July. June is you've got All-American camps, but you also have in-state local team camps where the high school teams bring their rosters together and meet up in one location to compete. And the biggest event is taking place at Summerwood Sports Complex here in the 501, just outside of Little Rock near Alexander. Beautiful new facilities over there. Three gyms. One has 2 courts. The other 2 each have a single court, but they're really nice. And you got teams from all over the state converging. So I got to see some, high major and Division I prospects out there, including our 5-star Future Hog JJ Andrews. We're going to talk a little bit about him in a second. I think one of the first things and we're going to talk about also, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but the exhibition game that was proposed, but ain't going to happen, that would have blown the roof off BWA. And then I'm going to give a tidbit on Terrion Burgess. I saw his dad out at this event yesterday and caught up with him and what might be going on with his son, Terrion Burgess. Apparently, I once again chose not to silence my phone. I hope it doesn't ring, but y'all can hear the chimes in the background. The first thing, though, here off the bat is Calipari put out a photo on his Twitter account about some conditioning work that he's got the team doing. He put a team photo out, and you see everybody once again. You don't see the 2 newcomers that were just added commitments from yet. They haven't made it yet, so you didn't see those 2. But it's the second photo that Calipari's put out since the team moved back onto campus where there's no Carter Knox. Well, so it raises the question: where's Carter Knox? There was a photo that he appeared in from one of Calipari's basketball camps. I think it was the one that he did in Russellville or Alma or one of the ones a week or so ago. And you saw Carter Knox in the mix. He was there. And then you see this new team photo where Calipari's talking about conditioning drills and putting the team through some grueling stuff. and no Carter Knox. Well, for anybody that's noticed that, and I've been asked about it by a couple of folks, there's nothing to see here. Not only in terms of not seeing Carter Knox, but in terms of making a big deal out of it. He had a respite for a couple of days. Apparently, that's part of it. He'll be back. He's with the team. He's part of the team. He's been back on campus since withdrawing from the draft. It took him a little longer to move on, about 2 weeks after most of the team arrived. It was a couple of weeks later that he actually got back, and he's got I don't know, a 48-hour, 72-hour, couple of 2 or 3 days reprise there. So he'll be back in the fold any day now. Expect him back this week. So anybody that noticed that, well, let's pump the brakes on worrying too much about it. JJ Andrews continues to impress. We talk about the 2026 6'6" wing, powerfully built, athletic, one of the most blue-collar 5-star level players you'll ever see, and has really just blown everybody away when you look at the work he did in May on the Nike EYBL circuit, and then following that up with one of the best performances, if not the best performance, at the loaded field at the prestigious MBPA Top 100 camp just last week. But his team, Little Rock Christian Academy, is taking part in this summer team camp. And yesterday I got to watch him and his team take on Farmington, a really good team out of Northwest Arkansas, just out of Fayetteville, coached by Johnny Taylor. Lane Taylor, Division I guard that's come out of there. His younger brother, Press, will be a sophomore this upcoming season. It's just a well-coached team, a really good team. In Farmington and Little Rock Christian Academy went to sudden death, and JJ just put on a show. He had a big three-point shot to tie the game near the end of regulation to send it to sudden death. And then he got a defensive rebound, pushed up court, made one pass, got the ball back in transition, and bully balled his way in for a layup, scored that through contact. Didn't need to shoot a free throw because that was the end of the game. It was sudden death. And so 52-50 win. But I interviewed him after it, and I talked about the fact that, he's having such a big spring and putting up these performances, and Calipari and his staff all over the place to see him in person. They were there when I was there in Memphis for the Nike YBL session, John Calipari and Chin Coleman, associated coach. And then for MBPA Top 100 camp, the entire staff was there. Calipari, I say entire staff, Calipari and his top 3 assistants, two associate coaches, Kenny Payne, I mentioned Chin Coleman, and then, of course, assistant coach Chuck Martin. So, I asked him about that. He spoke about what that meant to him. I tweeted that part of the interview out. But one of the things we talked about off camera, because I didn't want to put him on the spot during the interview, but we talked about off camera a little bit about what he's doing behind the scenes to help John Calipari with his 5-star top shelf recruiting. I mean, Andrews came off the board in May, and he's the first one in the class of 2026. And if you remember, the first player for Calipari in his first full recruiting cycle at Arkansas was Darius Acuff Jr. He visited in May. He pledged to Calipari and the Razorbacks in July, but he was the first. Not only was he a top 10 rated 5-star guard, and we know he'll be a freshman this season for the Hogs. Not only was he the first off the board, but he was kind of like that player recruiter because he came in multiple times. Remember that for other players that Arkansas was pursuing in their official visits. He was back in Fayetteville in October for the Tennessee football Hogs big upset over then 4th-ranked Tennessee, and he was there for Malik Thomas' visit. Well, that worked out great, didn't it? Because Malik Thomas ultimately committed to Arkansas and signed early in November along with Acuff. So, that recruiting, that part of, the appeal of bringing in a player that's, already on board. You've already got players on campus when you bring in recruits to visit who are going to interact with your recruit. But to have another player that's not an experienced college player, somebody that's even maybe more relatable, because they play alongside at some of these events and they're the same age, that kind of thing, to come in and maybe try to help sew things up. We also know that Acuff was back on campus when Nate Ament, who ends up going to Tennessee, came in for his visit. So it's never a guarantee of anything, but the point is it's kind of cool. And so I just asked JJ, I'm looking ahead, I'm thinking, is this going to be the Darius Acuff in terms of helping Calipari recruit players? Moving forward with a loaded 26 class. We know a ton of top 10, top 25 level 5-star guys. that Arkansas has made a priority out of. We've gone through all those names, an extensive list that ultimately will whittle down to 3 or 4 guys, and you can subtract JJ from that number because he's already committed, so 2 or 3 more. But having said that, I brought up some specific names with JJ, just saying, hey, are you talking to this guy? Are you talking to that guy? I won't mention those names. I'm not going to put him fully on the spot there, but he acknowledged the fact that he's already in the mix with some of this stuff and having some of those conversations. And remember, these players see each other all the time out on the circuit at these various high level camps, things of that, things that are right in the wheelhouse of him having that kind of access. And moving forward, I think this will continue. But I thought it was interesting. I think it's interesting when you look at, again, what Acuff, how exciting that was to see him back on campus, even though you knew he was already one of your committed players. And it's exciting to see the guys trying to rally other high-level guys to come play with them. And JJ Andrews is the perfect guy to do that, in my opinion, because, he's first of all, he's a really, really good player. And so other players can identify with, hey, this guy's really good. This is a place where I could maybe I feel maybe there's an element of feeling more confident that I'm going to have good pieces around me to help me win, help showcase me. That's a part of it. But he's also a great teammate. I've said it over and over again, the guy plays unselfishly. He does whatever. He makes the plays to win, not to make plays for himself. And other players recognize stuff like that. And then I watch the way he interacts with teammates, the leadership qualities, things of that nature. It's really genuine. So to me, this is a win-win for John Calipari. It was good to see JJ. I got to interview him right after during his announcement ceremony committing to Arkansas. I interviewed him the very next day in the first live eval session in when we drove down the street from Little Rock to Memphis. We both made that trip. He was there to play. I was there to cover it, and got another interview with him about his recent commitment to Arkansas. And here we are about a month later. Now we're talking about, are you doing the work behind the scenes to help bring other players to join forces with you? But the big smile came over his face. He was real positive about that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And just to remind folks, I mentioned some of the clutch things he was doing in a really tight game against a well-coached, really good Farmington team yesterday. At the end of that game, he took it over and, but throughout the game, they were face guarding him, bringing a double team immediately. And then they had a third guy playing kind of in no man's land, hedging towards him in case he broke the trap. So he effectively had 2 guys on him and a third guy spine ready to be on him. He constantly made the right play, got off the ball, made the right pass, trusted his teammates, and you like to see that. Because I've seen dudes that don't do that are really good, and they want to show everybody they can beat you 1-on-5, and JJ's just not that kind of guy. So I bring that up again, and I start thinking again. We mentioned Carter Knox, Billy Richmond III. Arkansas's got a spool of riches at that wing spot coming into this season. Guys that showed improved it as freshmen last year. You expect a lot out of that position group this year. Isaiah Seeley, another in-state really talented player out of Springdale in the mix at that wing. He's versatile. He might be able to help Arkansas playing some on the ball, Seeley, when he gets his opportunities, if and when that is. But the point is there's a spool of riches there, but you expect Carter Knox to go in the draft after this season. Maybe Billy Richmond does. You just never know. But JJ Andrews is next. He's got next to that position, and you're not going to have any drop-off. You're just not. Yes, every freshman has a learning curve. They're not going to be perfect. And so I don't mean to frame it like he'll be perfect or even playing at the high level, at the high major level immediately. It took Knox a while, right? About half a season to start ramping his game up. So you never know what that will look like. But Andrews, from a talent standpoint, from a he gets it as a teammate standpoint, and all the strengths to his game and what he brings to the table, that Arkansas is in great shape. And again, we'll see who they fill around him. We've talked a lot about the top shelf, high priority targets in his class. And I threw some of those names at him, and he confirmed that he's working on things. So you love to hear it. At some point, we may go into more specifics. Start nearly 15 minutes in. This is HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. Those things help us out, and we appreciate it. The exhibition game, we've been talking a lot about the little schedule drops that have come, kind of come our way, piecemealed, just a slow drip over the last couple of weeks, but it is ramping up. There's a little bit more, little fewer time between each drip. They're starting to get to a point where you expect more schedule announcement and in bigger bulk. And we've talked a lot about the regular season stuff. The last episode I did really focused on, now that we know about the road game against Michigan State, that non-conference matchup, games against Duke, Houston, Baylor, and who am I leaving out of there? And now Louisville in the ACC SEC Challenge. So we talked about some of that. It's been a while since we talked about that exhibition game, the charity exhibition game that Calipari has acknowledged against Memphis. That would be in Memphis as part of the St. Jude's Charity Hospital and a charity, I guess, in the name of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So that's something that we haven't gone back and revisited. But Arkansas plays 2 exhibition games. That's been the track record, and we know they've had some mega matchups at Bud Walton Arena. And I expect there to be probably a high major that we'll hear about that Arkansas is going to host, at Bud Walton Arena this upcoming season. You go back to 2 years ago, it was Purdue, big win there. Preseason #1 Kansas last year, and we know what Arkansas did there and ended up beating Kansas for real in the NCAA tournament. But as we look at matchups, there's one that won't happen. But it would have blown the roof off the place. It absolutely would have. But I can tell you, and I confirmed this a few days ago. I've been meaning to talk about this, but we were talking about recruiting and trying to finish out this roster, and we had 2 names that dropped late last week, so we spent time on that. But Southern Cal, USC, and Eric Patrick Musman, his staff, they reached out, and there was an opening salvo for let's do an exhibition game, let's do a charity exhibition game in Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville. So, which was declined. So I'm not trying to start anything here. I'm not trying to stir anything up. And it brings to mind, the question, is it just too soon, or is it one of those things that'll be a never? Because it's kind of like, if you're Arkansas, what do you gain from that? It's an exhibition game, it's for charity, but you can bring in plenty of big name schools and coaches and storylines that make sense. They're going to pack the house. That was a case against Purdue. It was a case against Kansas. John Calipari's not going to have a problem finding the right situation to pack the house for a charity exhibition game and for it to have purpose and meaning for a game that doesn't count on your record, right? So there's that. But I wanted to say, for those who were pining for in year 1, we were talking about if Arkansas could just get a 5th high major in the non-conference regular season schedule. And one of the teams' names that fans kept bringing up to me was, boy, I'd love to play Southern Cal and get EPM back in at Bud Walton even a year later. And those are the kind of things that will, still hang out there and be talked about. I still see USC pop up quite a bit in terms of, should Arkansas play them? We'd love to see it type of thing. So I was told a couple of things. Not only was the exhibition idea that was floated from USC to Arkansas, shut down, but that there are no plans for a regular season meeting, at least not this season. So if you were saying, well, maybe they're not talking exhibition because maybe they're talking regular season game. No on both accounts. That's the word now. You know how things are. I don't know where Arkansas is in terms of finalizing. It's actually finalizing it, although not much publicly has been released to us. It's just kind of stuff offhand that Calipari brings up. Now, those things turn out to play out to be true, but it's just not the full picture. So we don't know where some of this is going. But I thought it was interesting to even think about, again, having that as just something to talk about. And now there's something real to it. The idea that game was presented as, let's do it. So it's one of those things where you always wondered, are both programs just not even going there? Well, in this example, that wasn't the case. So, but just thinking about what that would be, what that would look like. Because I remember when EPM generated all the excitement in year one, Arkansas I think they had only one loss out of 13 in non-conference play, and they actually started 3-1 in league play. It was the first time that Arkansas had a winning record out of the gates in SEC play, and that's because that was right around the time Isaiah Joe got hurt. You had Mason Jones on just on a crazy, all-time kind of scoring rampage in the SEC play, and it was just getting started. But Kentucky and Calipari coming into Bud Walton Arena, if I'm not mistaken, I think Dick Vitale was there for ESPN for that game. I may be mistaken. I know he was there for one of them here, when EPM had taken over. But the place was just wild. And I mean, you just turn the tables. Just turn the tables. I mean, Calipari's an iconic coach. He's got the full fan base, the full force of it supporting him. And you'd bring back EPM, who left the program after great success. I mean, look, let's face it. If there was ever going to be, a Mount Rushmore of Arkansas basketball coaches, you got to put EPM on there. I mean, it starts with Nolan Richardson, Eddie Sutton. Eric Patrick Melseman would need to be on there for the great success he had in a short period of time. That's my opinion. I think Calipari is going to make that case easily. He's already laid the groundwork for that with the Sweet 16 run in year one, the levels that he recruits at, the fact that Arkansas is a ranked program, began last season ranked, finished last season ranked, and will come into preseason ranked pretty highly in year two. But I'm just saying these would be just by who the coaches are. Send a charity exhibition game onto another platform, onto another level in terms of excitement. So that's just my thought on it. I thought I'd catch everybody up. That's one that's not going to happen. But for those wondering, because there's again a lot of questions out there since Calipari's been here. Will Arkansas play Southern Cal? I'd like to see it. So there was at least an effort, an attempt made there. But again, just picture what you think the atmosphere would be like at BWA, and just based on that, it would be worth it for the fans. It'd be worth it for the fans. But I understand. I can think of many reasons why it's not a good idea for Arkansas, or at least not right now, and we'll see if that ever becomes the case. All right, moving on. I did bump into Terrion Burgess, class of 2025, star at Benton, once upon a time a top 35 player nationally. Helped Benton win the program's first ever state title in basketball back in March, a 5A state title. The 6'9" combo forward that Arkansas's previous coaching staff, recruited pretty strongly. And then you saw other SEC teams, namely Alabama, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma that were involved. Sorry about that. Okay, so Terrion Burgess was a guy that Arkansas was actually considering this time around, just a few weeks ago, to maybe adding to the roster, maybe having him as part of the roster. We talked about that. But conversation with his dad, very tight-lipped about it. He says he will be in school this next season. And a decision's coming up. But Terrion's been in Central Arkansas. He's been working out. I did see Terrion yesterday as well. But his dad handles his recruiting and things like that. So there's not really an update in terms of any information I got about what's going to happen, other than, you wonder about things. Are they going to look for a prep year and do it that way and continue to see what's available to him? He's got opportunities to not only have a meaningful role, but to also get NIL money. I know the Little Rock Trojans here in Central Arkansas really prioritized him. Some other mid-majors have as well. There are some high-major opportunities for him as well. But as far as Arkansas and the program is concerned, this is something that was on the table for a while. I can tell you that the name hasn't come up or been talked about amongst the staff since that was kind of a thing maybe a month ago. But you just never know where this could land for him. And because I think there is a small window still, if to add a back end piece, if you wanted to do that on this roster, who knows? I'm not trying to indicate that there's definitely something going to happen here. What I'm saying here is until Arkansas finishes things, or until Burgess makes some kind of an announcement or has, a destination, wherever that is, there's maybe that question that's out there about him tied to the Razorbacks, because people keep asking me about it. I mean, almost daily. So nothing here that points him to Arkansas. It's just the point of, we've said recently, after the last two editions, there's still a spot there. Some think maybe that Aiden Kelly, who was effectively a walk-on last year and was a freshman in Arkansas, you continue to see him in photos that come out from these camps. The photo that Calipari put out from practice the other day, but he's not in practice gear. He's in street clothes, and so you don't know what that's all about. Could he end up being the guy that's retained, and that fills out your roster to 15? But again, I'm asked so much about Terrion Burgess that I'm also interested in some finality here, and where is this going to land? It seems uncommon and unusual, but it's really not. It's just most players we know about, but there's always at the end guys that are still a bit of a mystery. He's not the only one, probably the biggest name in state that is, but not the only one when you look at it from a national landscape. All right, 26 minutes in. Thank you again for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Anything important that breaks today, we'll come back on, but probably looking at a Wednesday segment. But until then, thanks for being here. Appreciate you all. See you soon.